Seems like Amanda's never had a good ham and cheese croissant because, man, that'll put a smile on your face.
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about The George Carlin Show. The George Carlin Show went 27 episodes over 2 seasons on Fox. Here we're talking about episode 1, which was called When Unexpected Things Happen to George, originally airing January 16th, 1994. So to get things started, I'm Jake Gags. With me as always, a boy, Joe, Nick, Berg, and Gordo can't be here this week. What's going on, Joe?
Joe Sixpack. In a stunning reversal of fortune, last week the 5 of us got together for the first time in years to be all together in the same room, and then within a calendar week, there's only 2 of us for the first time ever to record an episode.
For the first time ever in like nearly 220-ish episodes, we're going to try to run a 2-man show, which I think we'll be all right. But yeah, so the George Carlin Show. Gordo, this is your pick. Why did you pick it? All right, yeah. So yeah, this actually was Gordo's pick, and then unfortunately, just a bunch of things happened. We knew we were going to be short-staffed this week, and then other things happened, which made us further short-staffed. But George Carlin, I would say at least you and I are probably the 2 most knowledgeable of George Carlin's work, right?
I would think so, yeah. From like the beginning all the way to the end, right? You go from radical hippie comic all the way to like
Shining Time Station,
Kevin Smith movies, yeah. Shining Time Station. Yeah, like what a crazy career.
Him and Ringo, the 2 Mr. Conductors.
Yeah, Ringo Starr and George Carlin. What a weird combo. Have you seen the multi-part HBO documentary on George Carlin?
No, I'm aware of it. I haven't watched it.
It's really good. I think it's his daughter who made it. There's definitely some scenes where you're like, oh, this is a bummer. Like, but it's great. But then you're like, this is a bummer. But there's also that weird stuff where you're like, whenever an avowed lifelong atheist gets towards the end of their life, it gets that like scary, like what? Wait, what? And like as somebody who is an avowed lifelong atheist, I'm terrified of that. I'm like, oh, how am I going to reckon with this?
Well, we get some. He touches on some of that in this episode too. We get a little prayer out of him in this episode. But yeah, the George Carlin Show. I'm aware of the show. Didn't watch it. I mean, again, if you look at the timeline, 294, we're like 8 years old. This show comes out. Like it's not like, you know, meant for us at this point in time. We're not super aware. At this point, we only know George Carlin as Mr. Conductor, right? Like, what years was he in that role?
Well, I would say Bill and Ted, though, we would have known at this point.
At 8? I mean, I guess.
I think Bill and Ted was playing on Comedy Central. I think we knew Rufus by this point.
It was out. Like, was I cognizant of it? I'm not 100%. Maybe, though.
Yeah, I remember watching it a lot as a kid, so maybe it was just different choices of, like, renting or, like, what was on TV at night. What's weird, though, is that I remember watching the show when it was new. I'd never saw it like in its original run again, 8 o'clock p.m., probably 8 years old, you're going to bed. But when we were in high school, TV Land, when they first started, or Nick at Night, I can't remember who it was, but one of them on Friday nights in the summer would do a thing where they'd play like 4 pilots for shows that like didn't last a very long time, but had like historic people on them. And that's where I first saw this. So that would have been 30 years ago now, probably, or 28 years ago. But I have seen this, and
how much would we benefit if that existed now?
It's kind of crazy to think of. I mean, I was thinking when I was watching this, because I had to find this from different means, right? Like, this isn't streaming anywhere. I was like, if this wasn't, you can't rent this. Like, if there wasn't like a YouTube now, like this would be gone fucking forever. There's no DVD release of this. There's no VHS release. It's just,
I was going to bring that up. Luckily, YouTube has a good chunk of the episodes, if not all of them, available. I think most of them are available on YouTube.
I think it's all of them. The hard thing about that, though, is if it's not all of them, like I looked at it and was like, I would love to watch this. Like, I bet my wife would watch this with me. And I saw the number of episodes. It's like, if it's missing just one, I won't do it. Like, I need the whole thing or nothing.
Sitcoms, you can kind of get away with it just because part of the like lure of sitcoms, you can kind of jump in wherever sometimes and watch a random episode of a show. I remember, I forgot what, like there was a show that we were gonna cover recently. I can't remember which one. And I, looked it up and I was like, oh no, we can't. Only episodes like 2, 5, and 8 are online. Like, and then it's like, all right, well, there goes that unless one person finds a VHS tape eventually and puts it on YouTube.
Right. And that's the only way those ones are even on there, right? It's like somebody had some tape that it was on from WLVI 56 25 years ago, and somehow they YouTube that or whatever. Yeah. Whenever I go to the Goodwill, the first thing I look for.
Yeah, you can tell this is someone videotaped it because you get like those little snippets of cut commercials that are hidden inside these videos, which like adds a charm when you're watching these, but like a nice normal copy would be cool. We got
a snippet of the Bud Light Dr. Gelly Weeket's Yes I Am commercials, which are really a moment in time.
So to go over a few numbers, IMDb 7.5 for the show, Rotten Tomatoes 88% no audience score. I can see that. Sounds about right-ish, middle of the pack to the higher level. Decent show, and then shows that are like this that are like kind of you're reviewing retro, like usually it's just kind of people who like it who tend to look back at it, so the score will be a little elevated.
Yeah, there's no like Pauline Kael or somebody who's going back and reviewing dead shows from 20 years ago and then like really scathingly giving them a review. Although that is basically the entire internet now, so who knows.
And then, on our hand, S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all our links to our social medias, anywhere where you can listen to us, our merch page if you want to buy a shirt or something like that. Our main kind of source on Twitter, our X, and Instagram. We like to talk to you guys, so hit us up, let us know shows you want us to cover, and we try to do our best to go over some of these fan picks. Do we gotta kind of go over those lists again and get some fan picks snuck in?
I just hope that someday somebody who runs like Fox or one of these networks like hears our show and is like, you know what, they are right. We do own all this stuff. It is fucking free. Like, it's just content we have.
Also, why don't we advertise our shows more?
There's that too. I mean, like, that's everybody now, though. I don't think that's on them. I think now that we live in an algorithm-based society, like, who fucking knows what you're going to see or, like, know about?
I would say, like, and that's a whole other tangent for another day, probably, and we talk about this stuff all the time, but I think nowadays, if a sitcom gets a lot of heavy press early, it's because a big celebrity is attached to it already, or it's like a reboot or something. So when Reba does a new show or Tim Allen gets a new show, we hear about it. But other than that, like, things just kind of pop up and what sticks.
And also, like, I mean, is it clearly not a proper good science, right? Like, it's a fucking algorithm, but like sometimes I'll like pull our Hulu up, whatever. It's like, because you watch this, you might watch this. And like, I watched none of that. Like, this is all bad. All your suggestions are fucking wrong. Like, I don't know how you can make this better, but I don't want to watch any of these shows you're suggesting.
So, I mean, I guess to just delve right into this one. So, first scene, we meet George, and this is another situation where George Carlin it's the George Carlin Show. We talk about this in other shows too. It's like we did the Mary Tyler Moore Show and all this. They name the show after the person, the actor in it, but then they play a different person in the show, which I always find interesting every time they do it, but it happens on so many shows now. He's George O'Grady.
I love that Seinfeld is just Seinfeld and he's Jerry Seinfeld. Like, it's just, look, it's a version of him. I guess, though, like, in a situation like this, it's easier to make George, like, it should have been just called like Ponytail or something. You know what I mean? Because he's not playing a version of George Carlin.
That's the thing. If you're playing a fictionalized version of yourself, like Seinfeld or Mulaney or some of those other ones, I get it. But the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the George Carlin Show,
yeah, there's a lot.
They both they keep their name. Like, George Foreman Show too. Like, he was George Foreman, but he wasn't. You know. Yeah. But yeah, here he's George O'Grady, which I guess O'Grady was his grandmother's maiden name. So there was like a personal connection to the name, but he's not George Carlin in the show.
Yeah, and I think the bar they go to is the bar his dad drank at. So like he's reining in the horses of like family stuff, like familial.
Because he's a New York guy. This is a New York bar that he's hanging out in. In the show, though, he plays like a cab driver. In this first scene, we see him walking into the bar, and he's just like kind of like scatting. Can you scat to jazz, or is scatting and jazz separate? Because he's kind of doing like a little,
scatting and jazz are, like you make bebop. I'm not we'll talk about jazz a little bit more as it goes on, because as a person who spent so many hours of his life in record stores, like, you just get inundated with like scrunking. So like, I know a little bit about jazz, but it is not my thing.
Yeah, so he's scatting his way over to the bar, and he orders a drink. And the bartender's like, before your shift, he's like, hey, relax, I'm unemployed. Like, oh, you got fired again? He's like, no, I quit. And he says, as a matter of fact, I quit a lot more jobs than I've ever gotten fired from. And he's going over some of his past jobs, like balloon vendor, migratory nitpicker. Is that what he said?
Yeah, migratory nitpicker and assistant to the geek, which is like an old-timey carnival term. Like, that's like the carnival geek is like the person who does anything for a dollar sort of scenario.
Yeah, before the Geek Squad era, he wasn't working at Best Buy fixing your computers.
It's always weird. I love the etymology of words. You're like, geek is this like weird thing. And it's this guy who'll do anything and depraved and will get money for you. What does he do? He fixes my computer. Like, okay, fuck, why not? I don't know why that happened, how we got 1-to-1, but here we are. Nerd makes more sense, but.
So this is where we find out that he was a cab driver. And so he's sitting there and him and the bartender are going back and forth. The bartender, his name's Jack. And they're talking about the game, who they're going to be betting on. So George is asking Jack who he's got in the Washington Jets game the Giants game coming up. And he's like, well, who do you like?
What is Washington called now?
Washington is now the Commanders, no longer the Redskins. They were the Redskins here.
Commanders, okay. I knew it changed. I don't follow football.
So it's weird. So that was one of those, they were the Redskins, and then for a lot of reasons you go, well, that's not right. And then they changed it after a lot of public outcry. And now a lot of Native Americans are like, well, we kind of like having teams named after us, but it's weird. I don't want to get too into it because I can't. They seem to be a split pot, so I don't want to speak on behalf of all the natives. And they don't even say native anymore, right?
That's a tough thing too. I think indigenous peoples is the proper term now. Yeah, I think we discussed too in Canada, it's First Nations. Like it sort of changes depending on where you are, but I believe the American vernacular is indigenous peoples.
Like I can see Redskin being a little much, and I thought like when they were going to change it, like you can change it to something that still like tributes them without it being that.
That's an issue. I agree with you. It should have been like the sachems or whatever, right? Like you like have a thing like it's
like the Atlanta Braves. No one cares. Like that's fine,
right? Yeah, like no one's mad about that. I mean, Tomahawk Chop's a little bit much, but aside from that, like the team, no one's mad at.
Cleveland Indians went away. I get it. That logo was rough. It's so stapled into my childhood, and I love the Major League movies so much. So like I'll always love it.
I was gonna say I loved baseball as a kid, and I love the Major League movies so much. And like I think Joe Boo was probably more racist in that movie than Chief Oahu is. But either way, there's a lot of racism.
When you go back and look at the logo, you go
It's real tough. It's a real red. It's really tough. It's hard to see that and go like.
I have one somewhere. It doesn't fit me now, but I have a Rick Vaughn jersey from that style of like Indians jersey from Major League.
I have a Chevy Chase Christmas Vacation Blackhawks jersey. Which is that changed now? The Blackhawks?
There's still the Blackhawks, yeah. So that's another example of like it's if done the right way. It's if you tribute,
yeah, that seems okay.
But
this feels like a really funny episode for sports to come up. I'm like, it's the
good.
person who knows a lot.
The person to bounce back and forth for all the sports talk. Yeah, Nick was almost here. Nick, we had some technical issues, so we got a little bit past Nick's bedtime. Nick being a resident Giants fan, so obviously it would have been great to talk to him here. But yeah, this game.
I could talk about the Bills because you know me, I'm pro OJ.
I have an OJ jersey too. But yeah.
That's a tough one. Did you have a fucking I'm a Chris Benoit guy t-shirt too?
I get a lot of stuff. So this Redskins Giants game, George's asking the bartender, like, who do you like in the game? He's like, well, who do you like? He's like, I get the Giants. He's like, oh, let me check my system thing. Because George has noted that this bartender's been on like a hot streak lately, like whatever system he has. He's like, oh, I actually have the Redskins. Oh, yeah? He's like, now he's starting to rock my confidence. Maybe I should go with them too. He's like, well, in that case, I'm going to go with the Giants. He's like, wait, that's your system? Your system is that you just take the opposite team I pick? He's like, well, there's more to it than that, but yeah, that's my system.
It's like the Bronx Tale system, where it's like if the
mush
guy is always a loser picks it, you don't bet. Yeah, the mush, yeah. Also, the bartender here, I love because he's in License to Kill, I think the best James Bond movie of all time. That's a very Joe opinion people do not agree with often, but he's also Jimmy on Seinfeld, which you mentioned earlier, which is like one of the bigger episode characters of Seinfeld.
And to go back 10 seconds to A Bronx Tale, the character we were just mentioning, he played himself in that movie. Like the guy they got for the movie was the guy that role was based on.
I fucking love that stuff. You hear all that stuff where it's like, oh yeah, Johnny Roast Beef, that was really what we called him. He's a guy hung at the bar. You're like, wait, you just authentically put real people in the bar? It's fucking wild.
Because Chaz Palminteri wrote that about his life. Chaz Palminteri's real name is Calogero. So like he wrote that movie about like his own life, and just played the role of Sonny. And then like when that character was explained, like De Niro wanted to meet like the guy, and he's like, they offered him the actual role.
That's funny too, because Alex Rocco in this, who's like, Mo Green in The Godfather, like who was like a real deal mobster, who's like a Boston mobster too, right? Like maybe muck ducked some people and went to jail for it type of mobster.
And we'll talk about him in a minute. I think he's actually great in this episode.
He's just great. And to your thing too about the mush, right? Like there is something so much, and you're much more Italian than I am, but I'm like a quarter Italian. There's something so much about that generation of those guys where you're like, you could just be an actor though too if you're done killing people, and it worked every fucking time. They're all so charismatic.
So me and Ferg were just in Vegas and we went to the Mob Museum, and while you're there, the Mob Museum is actually in the old courthouse where all of those trials were. Like they use the same building, which is cool. So there's like this one segment or like exhibit where you're actually in like that room where the trials would take place, and you sit like in the pews, and they're playing like audio clips from the actual trials, and like all those old mob guys were just the most charming, charismatic people. Like these guys are like being tried for like cold blood killing 20 men, and they're like cracking jokes and stuff like that, like sitting in the chair. It's like it's just a different world.
Different world, yeah. That was a different breed. I always wonder, because like we've talked about it before, I think, but like the mob still exists in some form or capacity now. I don't need to know details, but it feels like it's very different than it was then. Yeah, I don't want to know anything. I'm out. I don't want to know anything. But I find it interesting that it still exists, but in a very different fashion.
So, right after that, like, exchange they had about the game is when George's buddy Frank walks up, right as someone's walking into the door. Frank's played by Mike Haggerty, a guy who I've said a million times. S1E1 Hall of Fame, like, first ballot. I really want to do a Hall of Fame episode, like, bonus episode at some point. He is legitimately, I have to count it out, appeared in the most episodes of television we've covered, like pilots. I don't know how he's landed in so many pilots, but he must have been in like 5 or 6 that we've covered so far.
We can't cover it on our show because it's more of a dramedy, but that Somebody Somewhere show, he plays the dad, and he died while that show was going, and like they had to kind of write him off, and you felt the like pain of them being like, well, funniest human in the world, like Haggerty actually passed away. This is hard for us to handle. Like he's such a weight,
And he only got up because the door opened and you see like this kind of rich dude walking in with his dog. I assume you were really excited when you noticed this is Dr. Neil Beck, but he's
immediately
played by Christopher Rich. And I mentioned Reba earlier.
Yeah, he's Brock on Reba. He's also Eric Charming.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot the Charmings, which we did not long ago too.
Yeah, and not on the pilot. So he had a stroke a couple years ago and he hasn't acted, but they brought him back on Happy's Place. So there's an episode where he plays a tattoo artist who had a stroke and can only tattoo with one arm. And that's like the joke of it. And he was great. It was great to see him.
I'm glad they were able to he's able to laugh about it in a way and make it work and do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I mean, that's at least 3 for him. He might be a future Hall of Famer as well at this point.
He's getting there too. Yeah.
So
the fucking Charmings is the worst show ever though. Holy shit.
So when he walked in, Frank's like, hey, George, you smell Amorous? And I looked it up. So Amorous is just like a cologne that has existed forever. It's actually like the first like men's fragrance that was widely available like in department stores.
It's like a gorgeous George cologne or something from the 50s.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, like I don't personally own it, so I can't speak on the scent profile. I'm curious now because it's been around for an eternity.
Doesn't amorous mean horny?
Ooh, does it? It might. I'm not a word nerd.
Power of editing. I have to look this up. I'm pretty sure that's what that word means. Yeah. Showing, feeling, or relating to sexual desire. I'm going to buy a bottle of amorous.
Yeah. At least, or maybe I'll get a clone version and see how that goes.
The smell-alike of the 1950s cologne amorous. James Dean was wearing the smell-alike when he crashed his car and died.
So yeah, so this guy walks in. Again, I said Dr. Neil Beck. So Neil walks in. And he heads to the bar. He says, hey, would it be cool if I watch the game? Like the cable's out in my building. I get no one to watch the game. So I'm stuck with the dog. If that's all right, they won't let me bring the dog in anywhere else. And it's like, as long as he's housebroken. And so he's sitting there. And while he's sitting there, like the rest, like, George and his buddy and the waitress too are all kind of watching along, like taking bets on what he's going to order. They think he's going to get something a little... they think he's actually going to go with something more like try to be a guy's guy, like get like a regular drink, but he orders a martini.
I think we talked about this. I don't
Martini's
love martini.
not for me, and I'm a gin guy. But yeah, I don't like olives. But maybe this version of the martini will I could give a shot.
Yeah, I'll take a cherry.
So olive juice is only when it's dirty, right? Like there's always an olive in it, but the olive juice is when it's a dirty martini, right? Yeah.
I believe so, yeah, which I do not love either.
So when he orders the martini, like they're all worried for the bartender. Like the bartender who's the owner of the bar, by the way, like his dad like left it to him or whatever, as far as the story goes. To the point where like George is even like whispering like some of the ingredients. He's like, I know how to make it, don't worry. So they all watch on and he does a little bottle flip and he's impressing all the guys because it's kind of one of those bars where everyone's just getting beers cracked open all day. So it's very rare a bartender has to like make a drink.
I love that situation though. I've been in those kind of bars before where it's like a shot and beer bar and someone's like, can I get the house margarita? And you see the look of panic on the bartender's face. They're like, fuck, I gotta dust this off and figure this out. And like, nobody goes to a bar like that and orders a martini. What are you doing, man?
Well, the thing is too, like, I remember for years, like I always looked at, they used to have those classes where like, oh, do like a week-long course and learn like how to bartend. And I want to do it's actually an odd thing. My mom always told me to take those classes because acknowledges that I could talk to a fucking, a wall for an hour or so. It's like, you'd be good with that, like as a side job. And I never did it. And then like the internet kind of like, times changed. So now like people just watch videos online or they like, if you order a drink at a bar, sometimes they don't know what it is. You'll just see them literally just Google it real quick and make it for you. So it's like, I guess the artistry is a little dead.
I don't know about you, but like these sort of mixologist bartenders or whatever, I did like as part of a like Groupon thing once, like when we were doing remote stuff during COVID, where it's like, hey, everyone's gonna do a happy hour thing where you learn how to make a drink and we're gonna like mail you all this stuff or whatever. And I was leery to begin with, and I'm watching this thing. The only good thing about this is I still have the lime squeezer for this day. So whenever we make like burrito chicken, I'm always like, ooh, lime squeezer. I think I told you at the end who's like, can you guys follow me on social media? What's your social media? And I looked at the guy and was like, no, I'm sorry. No, I won't do that. I couldn't even just be like, I'm at whatever. Just like, fuck, man, I can't be part of this. I'm sorry. You depress me as a human.
I'll say this.
Fucking flipping cocktail bottles in the air.
I do enjoy a nice cocktail from time to time. Like my go-to, like I'm a gin and tonic guy, or I'll just drink a beer or like a bourbon straight. But I do like to go to the occasional like cocktail bar and try like weird shit that's going to have at least 2 to 3 ingredients that I have no idea what they are. And then I just have to look them up and it's just some weird thing that only exists to be in cocktails. And I don't know. I do enjoy watching like the artistry of it, but like not all the time and not for that price point.
Yeah, what kills me with those is if I don't like it, I'm just going to drink it really quickly so I can have a drink I do like. And when someone gives you a drink that has like 2 shots of bourbon in it and you're like, I'll just chug this so I can get something I do want. Like that catches up with you as the day goes on. So you're like, oh, I hated this. And now I'm a little ripped and ooh, what's next?
Well, that's the scary thing with cocktails because again, I don't know what some of the things are. So I look for, all right, for me, usually I'm like first ingredient, I'm looking for a gin drink. All right. And then I look at something, I'm like, all right, that looks like something I like. And then there's going to be 2 or 3 things in there that I have no idea what they are.
Some sort of bitter you don't know or whatever, yeah.
So then they hand me the drink and then it's like, it's a complete coin flip. So I'm like, well, I just spent $20 on this, so I'm drinking it one way or another.
It's crazy now thinking too, like we were talking the other day when you were up here about like, there are the hard alcoholic seltzers and then there are the ones with vodka in them and you're like, that is a dangerous move. Like we all lived through like the Sparks era where Sparks was like real Sparks, like malt liquor with caffeine, which was basically a fucking drug. It was crazy to think of. But now I see people all the time, or like at a baseball game or something, and somebody's just drinking 3 vodka drinks in a row, and I'm like, oh, that's bad. You make that too easy.
It's proportionate to serving size, though. You know what I mean? It's not like you're making it at home. You're not just cracking a can of Polar Seltzer and dumping vodka in it. So they usually end up the same like 5% ABV that if you're drinking like any other type of one of those drinks.
Sure. And my go-to drink is bourbon and soda water, right? So like I'm well aware of like you can always tell, I always tell by like the hue, or my wife can always tell by the hue. If I walk in and she's like, that was a little strong, huh? And I'm like, is it? Like it's yellow completely through. You can't see any water. I'm like, we're fine. We're doing okay.
So to go back again, he's making this martini and surprisingly he's doing a good job up until the very end. And then where it's time to drop in the olive, he drops the cherry and they're all like, oh, and he's like, oh, it's the garnish, right? like he knew he fucked something up at the end.
But does cherry make anything
No.
bad? I don't think so. Someone's like, here, it's a vodka soda with cherry in it. You'd be like, I bet that's good.
Yeah. Like, especially like maraschino cherries, like the type of cherries that are going to be at like at a bar, like those are always great.
Right. And even if you didn't like it, like if somebody put a cherry in, if you don't squeeze fruit, right? Like when somebody puts a lime wedge or a lemon wedge in your drink or whatever, right? Like it doesn't change any of the drink's flavor. It's a garnish. If you squeeze it into it, it will. But like if someone put a cherry in your martini and you were like, I don't want this, you'd just pull it out. It would not change any of the flavor in any appreciable way.
And then after this was weird. It was like, there was an exchange between like the waitress Sydney and George. And she's like, hey, remember that modeling job I told you about? He's like, yeah, the one you were going to turn down unless they handle it tastefully. Yeah, right. The condom of the month club. Well, I decided to go with with the man or whatever. Like, I was like an odd, like, I felt like, it was an odd exchange and it seemed like dialogue that was just like written. Like, I think like when you have a lot of stand-ups that are heavily involved in like their own sitcoms, sometimes we see this where there's just like an unnatural dialogue to fit a joke that they have. Like, and I fucked up the punchline because I don't remember exactly what she said at the end.
I knew we were fucked too because George Carlin is a wordsmith comedian, right? Like he is a comedian who like makes puns and jokes out of words. So like when you have him has 25 minutes to write an episode, I was like, fuck, the notes are gonna be tedious on this because there's gonna be so much fucking dialogue.
There's a bit of that, and that was like a thing going. It's almost good that there's two of us, because he goes into that whole like her modeling job, basically like whatever it was something less than compared to what she wanted it to be, and she says how it's giving up hope, and he's like, good for you, hope sucks. He's like, people who have hope, they're constantly worried about when it's gonna kick in. Keeps going on about it, and you can again tell that this is like a straight out of one of his bits. Like, just insert a paragraph right here about hope.
Yeah, this is like him doing bits where like, but I appreciate it. It feels like he wrote bits for the show. Like it feels like he's invested enough that he wrote all new stuff that is in his voice, but it's also tough to watch something in
George Carlin's stand-up, especially like this era, like later, he's in his mid-50s, like when the show comes out, was very like TED Talky type of, you know what I mean? Like, he makes you laugh and think. And that was always kind of his bit, especially as he got older, more and more so. And I felt like was one of the innovators of like that style of comedy. So like a rant like this about hope and giving up hope is good for you, like feels like George Carlin 101.
Yeah, and I appreciate too, George Carlin's one of those guys who never took himself too seriously. Like doing this, like you could see his, especially in the 60s, you could see his like very progressive comedy and be like, this isn't a guy who'd do a sitcom, but he'll like do it on his own terms, right? Like he's not a guy who's gonna be a trucker who blows people in a dumb movie. Like, yes, he is, because that's funny. He's a comedian. You're laughs,
doing it all wrong.
I always love that he never get you down the road. Like, that's why I love him so much, is that he was like, funny is funny. People who think funny is funny and can go in different... Mel Brooks, I feel like, is a similar person, right? Like, he never shied away from just like, if it's funny, it's fucking funny, man. Like, just,
you know what, like, it's funny, because I was drawn... When I was watching this, kind of like, there's points where George Carlin kind of reminds me of Mark Maron. Oh, that's another fictionalized version of himself show we did. Mark Maron is like George Carlin with a lesser ability to laugh at himself. You know what I mean? Like, Mark Maron is George Carlin if George Carlin took himself a little too seriously. And I love Mark Maron.
I love Mark Maron too. I'm very happy for him, but a little sad to hear about.
He's like neurotic George Carlin. Yeah.
Right. This way with a lot of neuroses. And you and I, especially, that's a good person to bring up on this episode, right? Two people who like have a bit of obsession with like the Comedy Store, 80s, Dice Clay, Kiss and stuff. But good for him, man, for going out on his own terms and ending his podcast on his own.
You know, bringing up the Comedy Store, that was one of those, like, when I was in LA, was like my non-negotiable. When I'm on a trip with Ferg and other people, and it just becomes like, well, we got to go here, and everything's like Disneyland, and, you know, we got to go to Universal, and we got to do these, and all these things, like, ching, 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 ching. I'm like, we're going to the Comedy Store. That's my one thing. I was like, all your things are expensive, so we have to do my one thing, which is much cheaper. So can we please go to the Comedy Store? And, like, walking in there was, like, one of the highlights of my whole week was just, like, you felt like you were somewhere special being in that room, like knowing all the things that have happened in there.
The amount of funny people, the amount of insane shit, the amount of cocaine that was done in that room in the 1980s is bananas. If we ever get to a point where we do a Patreon or whatever, I don't know if you watched it when it was on, but like the Minding the Store reality show on TBS, that was like Pauly Shore.
No, I know of the show, but yeah, I never watched it.
That would be a great rewatch. It was so bad. Bobby Lee was like one of the main people in it. Ari Schaefer was in it.
This is when the store like didn't really have its comeuppance yet, right? They were still struggling a little bit at that point.
It was before the Renaissance. Yeah, this is like probably 2002. So like, comedy hadn't really reboomed. That part of LA wasn't really great. And I think they were getting a lot of takeoff or like drain away from like sketch comedy and like alternative comedy. Like people weren't going to like the Comedy Store anymore.
We brought him up earlier. This is when Harry walks in. Harry's the bookie, and he's played by Alex Rocco. And Alex Rocco is, again, legendary. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's been in The Godfather. He is what he plays, and him as the bookie is just so perfect in this, and he just plays it so naturally.
It's crazy because you're like, why is it so natural? It's like, I don't think he's acting. I think he's just this guy,
To not dox anyone I know, or just, I've been around that stuff. And like, not to say it in a funny way, but like, it just, I don't know. I don't know if it's like legit. I don't want to play the stereotypes. I don't know if it's a fucking Italian thing or not, but like, I know bookies. I've been around it. Like, my family's been around it. I've just seen it, growing up. And they're not like always these like big character fake guys. Like, this is just like an Italian guy who happens to take numbers and stuff like that. And he's a regular guy. And you see what his relationship with George, like what you're seeing with George, the fact that they're friends, and like, we'll get into it as the story progresses, but like, how he handles being a bookie here. It's not always like snap their legs and kill them. Like, this is how it goes sometimes. Like, there are legitimate bonds and friendships in these situations sometimes.
Which I think to his detriment, right? Like, you shouldn't be friends with people you're loaning money, right? Like, that's like a number one rule. But yeah, if you got like an ITAM, you look at everybody drinking at the bar at the ITAM, you can tell right away, like, who to not fuck with. You know what I mean? Like, it's like a vibe.
So he walks in and, right off the bat, a couple people are putting in bets before this game starts. And by the time he gets to George is like, hey, like, you think you'll let me go for 1,000 this week? And he's like, George, we need to talk. And like, they go to sidebar and they sit over at a booth, and he's like, hey, like, you owe me $2,700. Like, I gotta cut you off right now.
That's wild too, because he wants another grand, like a full grand on a game in 1990. Was this for?
Yeah, it's because in his head, if he puts 1,000 on the game and he hits, and like the odds are, like, say he gets the underdog, whatever the odds may be, but you're gonna need at least that to recoup a good chunk of that money, depending, you never know the odds, so I can't say specifically of that particular game, but you get into a hole and then you just think like, well, that one big hit, I'm going to catch up. So it's like that double or nothing mentality.
Gambling is like a legit addiction for people. And I've seen myself get close to it where it's like, well, if I buy two $20 tickets and I hit $10, you find yourself just spending the day being like, oh, that's bad. I
go through spurts. I wouldn't say that I'm like a habitual gambler, but I am someone who has like impulse control in general, right? Which reflects on multiple areas of my life.
Sure.
So like, I'll see it a little bit, like when I'm at a casino or something, there's a point where like I'm somewhat regimented, but like you will let yourself bend the rules. Like, I'm not someone who will do tragic things to myself, over it. Like, I definitely have my limits, but you'll bend the rule. You'll go, I'll get up from this table when I have this amount of money in front of me. And then you hit that amount, you go, I can spend another 50. Like it happens sometimes.
Yeah. You're not losing rent.
Right, but I might leave with a little less than I said was the least amount I would leave with. They're going through all these numbers now, and he's like, listen, like, we have to figure out some sort of a payment plan right now. Like, what's your, like, weekly income? Like, what are you taking in right now? He's like, roughly? He's like, 0? Is that a number? He's like, oh, dude, you quit your job? He's like, why? He's like, well, the cab company wanted me to cut my ponytail off. Which is funny because I was glad it was acknowledged. Because when the show started, I noticed he had this like down almost to the bottom of his back ponytail. And I'm like, when did when did he have this?
First thing in my notes, I was like, what is this? He looks like he has like an actual pony's tail. Like, this is not George Carlin's hair. He's always had like that long, like a 3 or 4 inch little curly.
But what's funny here is I'm thinking, so the story is work basically said to him, hey, you have to cut that off or you're done here. Which is kind of a weird rule for a cab company, but whatever.
It makes no sense for a early 1990s New York City cab company at all, but yeah.
For that length, he's been growing his hair out for like 8 years for his ponytail to be that long.
But he's not like a livery driver. It's not like he's going to pick up like Sheena Easton at the airport. You know what I mean? Like, I've gotten into cabs where like, you don't think about that. Like, if he has long hair, who gives a shit? Like, that's so wild to think that would be a stop.
But why is it now a problem? This isn't like he just walked in after a vacation with a ponytail. He's had a ponytail for years.
it would have been growing for, yeah.
Well, whatever, maybe new management.
Like, yeah, we know this cab is full of vomit and, it's New York City in the 90s. We're going to fucking Times Square to a sex store, but like, cut your hair.
Now it's like, well, how are we going to like recoup this? And he kind of makes the joke, like, what, are you going to break my legs? He's like, no. He's like, but I'm going to have to do something. I'm going to have to go by your house basically and like recoup like from your belongings. So that basically becomes the thing. Like, all right, tonight he's going to come by and he's going to find, X amount of dollars worth of shit basically.
This is one of those weird things too now where like, even if he had a crazy stereo setup or you had one now, where like that has become so inexpensive. We were walking through Walmart the other day and there were TVs that were bigger than the wall my TV is on by like 3x, and it was like clearance and they were like $400. Like, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, this last year or two they've like significantly changed in price. But I was thinking about like, man, if I was in that bind and someone walked through my house and like, all right, taking these and these, there's a point where like sometimes you're looking and you're like, like the big account's looking a little lighter than I'd like it to. And I'm like, man, if I sold a bunch of my shit, like just stuff that I only have for sentimental purposes, like I have a good amount of things that hold value that like I could get a good amount of money from, but I don't know if I have the strength to part ways with some of this shit.
I'm the same way. Whenever I do like a purge, I try to like purge records every couple of years for like stuff they're listening to, right? It's like Back to the Universe, like to somebody who listened to it, maybe I don't want this anymore, or I never listened to it, whatever. And that takes a lot of work. But if someone's like, come in and take my guitar, which is like that would hurt, right? Like there's things you're like, or like my wrestling figures, you and I both have big wrestling figure collections. They're worth a lot of stupid money for no reason, but they're so emotionally childhood valuable. I couldn't part with them.
So he leaves. He's going to come back tonight. As he's leaving, he crosses paths with the waitress. And the camera just kind of sticks with the waitress to keep the scene inside the bar as he's leaving. Most of this episode is held in the bar. And I from what I understand, most of this show is inside of this bar. But this episode in particular, I'd say a good 75 to 80% of it's holding inside of this bar.
I imagine there must be some cab stand, right? Because like you can't do a cab sitcom and not like riff on Taxi a bit. Like they must at least did once go to the taxi stand.
You would like to see it, and then obviously that opens up like more of the cast or at least side characters,
like coworkers, and yeah.
But in this case, as he's leaving, so now we're on the waitress. She's talking to Dr. Neil and he's looking at her and he's like, I couldn't help noticing your breasts. And she's like, in a better world, that line wouldn't start a conversation, but go ahead. He's like, no. I'm a plastic surgeon. My curiosity is almost entirely professionally. So not completely, almost entirely, but.
Also, this person is a total sadist because there is nothing good about 1994 breast implants. That is like the worst thing you could ever do to your body.
So if I remember being a kid that age, being exposed to fake breasts through MTV's Beach House, and watching those shows where like watching all those videos where they would do like the bikini competitions and you just see these, at the time, especially in that time, it was all about like these blondes with like the most fake breasts, imaginable. And at those times they were like rocks, you know what I mean? And they had these like thin girls that would just shove as much as the skin could hold. So they wouldn't like, nothing would move them.
God, it's so unhealthy.
And I'll say, and again, I know people in real life that have had augmentations done, and they have come a long way too. Like now, there's like so many different ways to do them, and they can make them look way more natural than they used to. So, but at that time, yeah, that '90s fake breast was just cantaloupes just shoved into a bra at that point.
Very specific, and like I think unhealthy too. Like a lot of people I think have had issues where like leaking. And
there was like silicone poisoning and stuff like that back then, right?
Yeah, very, very scary. That's also too like, I mean, I'm a glasses person, you are as well. I'll never get the laser eye surgery, but when people got it right at the beginning, I was like, are you sure? Because I'd maybe give that 10 or 20 years to make sure there's no crazy side effects.
When we were
first.
Kids, I remember like my dad was trying to sign me up. Like he basically wanted me to be the prototype. And I'm like, I don't know about this. Especially it sounds worse than it is. I think when you're a kid, and like you're gonna shove a laser into my eyeball. Nowadays, yeah, now it's like a little bit. It's so routine. I'd be less nervous, but I'm like, I'm committed, and I'm at an age now where like last time I ever talked to someone about it, like, well, if you get it done, you're still going to need like glasses to read and to drive at night. So I'm like, so what's the point? Like,
Yeah, like why?
so
What's
they're
the
just
point?
slightly
Yeah.
better under yeah. So things just look slightly better on a beach day. Yeah, like it doesn't matter at this point. But yeah, he's telling her how he's a surgeon, but then he's like just like dissecting her breasts in like this weird way where like the conversation doesn't go anywhere. He just talks about how they're like, it's almost nice that they're uneven and asked to touch them. Like, strange.
A fucking truly insane ask.
So she walks off.
This also comes from a time though where it was like meet a doctor. You meet a guy and he's a doctor, stick with him. Like it's like that weird fucking societal thing that's so fucking crazy to think of now.
Well, I think like our parents' generation still has a little bit of that inside of them. It's just like, it's just the people our age are less, the world has evolved a bit. She walks off and Neil takes a seat at the table. And when he sits down, you can just see like George like looking at him as you hear the commentary from the football game starting. George walks over and joins them. He's like, "Hey, I heard you're a Redskins fan." He's like, yeah. He's like, and basically, any interest in putting some money on the game? He's like, I guess. Like, I don't bet. Like, what's like a normal, like, what do you guys normally spend on these things? He says, I don't know what Joe Sixpack bets on a football game, as you said earlier. So he goes, $2,700. And then George looks at it. She's like, are those Italian? Yeah. Like, make it $3,000. So he realizes that Neil has money. So now he's going to bet him, basically all of his debt to try to, double or nothing here in hopes that if he wins this game, he's going to be able to clear things up with a bookie.
Now also imagine this, like, doesn't matter what your job is. You walk into a bar you've never been to before. You want to watch a football game. You're with your dog and someone says, inflation calculator wise, do you want to bet $6,000 on this football game with a stranger? That's a fucking crazy thing to do.
Yeah, you have no knowledge of this person. You just walk into this bar to just pass the time. I guess they're trying to make it where, in like Neil's perspective, he has so much money it doesn't matter. Like they're trying to play him up as like, what do like you average people bet? Like, but yeah, just the general concept and believability.
Right, he's a hotshot Playboy doctor.
Yeah, this is not a believable circumstance by any stretch of the imagination.
It just like, it's so funny when you put the money in perspective. Like $6,000 is so fucking much money.
So they make this bet, and then shortly after the game actually starts, and you see them all watching along, and everyone's like standing up in this bar watching it, like, acting almost as if they're watching like a horse race game. Like I felt like I was at the track watching all these guys like screaming as they're watching the screen. And from what I'm gathering, it looks like if I'm reading the reactions of the crowd, the Redskins probably scored on opening kickoff. So as soon as the game started, right off the rip, the Redskins brought the ball in. So the Giants are behind immediately, basically first play of the game.
I will say this, I gathered the same with my minimal knowledge of football, but football games are also historically fucking forever long. So like, I feel like you shouldn't be that upset at the very beginning of the game.
I'm a big football guy, and like those things will be disheartening to if like because you get to the up. Here we go. George jumps up, yells, "I hope you die in a car fire" when that score happens.
Legit lol right there. That was a fucking very hard laugh because that's meaner than George Carlin usually is.
And this is also and this is a man who's now desperate and just made a $3,000 bet. Who he's already in debt for about that amount and is not working. So if this game does not pan out, he is fucked. And you flash forward a little bit further and, they're all, we're still in the bar. Now he's kind of sitting back in his old spot at the bar with his buddy. You hear like the commentary from the game and you hear like, oh, Mike, he just had his bell rung. And then you cut over to George talking to Frank and he's like, yeah, that means it's only a brain injury, which is funny now because, it's funny because like that's just how it was handled back then. Like, oh, got his bell wrong, and now we look back and it's like, oh, these guys had 80 concussions and their brains turned into that of a fucking child, and that's why this, that, and the other thing have all happened.
You hear like, we got a stinger. He just went numb for the lower half of his body for a minute, but he's okay. You're like, that's fucking bad. That's not just like a regular thing.
Listen, you brought up Chris Benoit earlier, and then you talk about guys like Aaron Hernandez, and then they study their brains, and they're like, oh, these guys were deeply disturbed mentally because of all of the trauma. And then, like, that's a story for another day, how you want to, like, handle that. But I don't want to be a Chris Benoit defender at all times. Like, I know it's not a good look. It's not a good look, but I am saying there is a point where, at what point is your brain so damaged that you're not cognizant of your actions anymore? And it's like, you're no longer, it's almost like pleading insanity at a point. You know what I mean? Like, at what point is your brain on its own and you're not responsible for what's going on mentally? And it's not, pleading insanity is a thing. And like, I think extreme CTE takes you to that point of mental debilitation where you're no longer making cognitive decisions.
I'm not disagreeing that that's a thing and that's the thing that can happen. But like Junior Seau felt like he was getting that way and he killed himself before he killed his family. You know what I mean? Like Benoit went a little more extreme.
I don't think he was having like homicidal thoughts. I think he was like in pain nonstop too. And that was part of it. So, but you don't want that to be the answer either.
I would just wish in a better world Chris Benoit just killed himself. Jesus Christ. What a fucking asshole.
Listen, the way that night went, obviously, yeah, you would hope there'd be one dead person instead of three. And again, I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm just saying, at what point is your body on autopilot and you're not actually making decisions that you would have clear-headed?
What's weird though is the clarity later where he Googled like how to bring a person back from the dead. It's like, that's not a Google that's effective.
No, but that's also not a thought of a rational person either. You know what I mean? That's also
sure.
But I don't want to get too into that. It's just a throwaway line. But the game's going on, and things obviously are not going great for George at this point. And the waitress is even asking, like, "Can you pay him if you lose?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Well, if you have no hope, then why did you make the bet?" Like stupidity, self-destruction. It's like, plus, I love the action.
A true gambler.
We hear like something in the commentary. It looks like something positive happened for the Giants. So now they're saying like, there's time for one more play. And to win the game, Giants kicker David Threadwell is going to have to face a 52-yard field goal attempt. We'll be right back. A reasonable, like you can hit from over 50. It happens constantly in games. It's like right on that threshold of like once it becomes like a challenging kick, but it's not by any means an impossible one.
Football field's 100 yards, right?
Yes. But you figure so basically the way it works though, from the end zone line to the actual uprights is like an extra 15 yards. So like you're not kicking from the 50-yard line to kick a 50-yard field goal. You're pretty much at the 35-yard line.
I mean, I couldn't do that, but like still, it's a pretty long distance.
If you've ever tried to kick a field goal, by the way, which I've tried a couple times, it is so much harder than you think. Like I couldn't in any aspect even remotely come close.
It's the best position in football too, right? Because you get paid a ton of money. You don't get hit by anybody and you work like...
But you have to be elite good. The threshold of like tolerance for... Yeah,
very,
like,
very good.
For field goals and like extra points, like if you're not hitting those consistently, like you're done quick. But yeah, the good ones, the Vinatieri's of the world, like sorry, again, listening, obviously you could tell like we're a Boston-based podcast. Those guys have the longest of careers and, are paid fruitfully for it.
Yeah, you don't wear your body out, I imagine, anywhere near as much.
We hear that. There's going to be a commercial break. And then this is another time where you get like a George Carlin, like, I felt like the dialogue was weird. They were just trying to shoehorn like a little bit. And he starts talking about like, a commercial for loose-fitting jeans. And he goes into this whole thing about loose-fitting jeans. I know we've talked about jeans and how you feel about loose-fitting jeans.
A lot, yeah.
But I feel like this dialogue here was just such a forced... He's saying it, by the way, to the entire bar. He's like doing a bit in front of everyone as he's running into the bathroom.
I will say, although I do agree with him on his loose-fitting jeans comment, why you gotta throw croissants into that? Croissants are delicious, man. Like, what are you mad about with the croissant? Like, that's not a fancy thing. You can get any breakfast sandwich on a croissant at like a Dunkin' Donuts. It's not like a fancy thing, you know what I mean? It's just French.
Yeah, it's basically, he's blaming boomer yuppies and their fancy like croissants and things of that nature for... everyone gaining weight and now having to wear looser jeans.
Seems like Amanda's never had a good ham and cheese croissant because, man, that'll put a smile on your face.
Now, as far as croissants go for breakfast sandwiches, if I'm at Dunkin' Donuts specifically, because I believe they make a lower grade of breakfast sandwich, I will go and get there because most, like, depending on what Dunkin' Donuts you happen to be at, and I work at the airport, and it's like a 50-50 shot if they ever actually toast something, versus just put it in the thing that makes stuff warm. So if you ever get a breakfast sandwich and they don't toast your English muffin and it's just a warm floppy one, it's like the worst experience in the world. So I've always like brought myself down to like, if I'm home, like I love a good English muffin breakfast sandwich, but if I'm at Dunkin' Donuts, I'm getting a croissant because I don't need that to be toasty.
Yeah, that's like not gonna be too chewy or too hard. Like a bit, like I love a sesame seed bagel.
Same thing though. Yeah, if you just make it warm, it's weird on a breakfast sandwich. So it's like croissant's the safe bet there.
The key is like tough in the airport, right? Because they're cranking them out fast. If you walk into a Dunkin' Donuts, this happened. We were driving back from my parents' house a couple weeks ago, and we stopped to get a coffee. It was like 9 a.m. I was like, I'll just go in. There's like a long drive through, and I could see the like 14-year-olds making all the breakfast sandwiches, and I was like, yeah, we're just sticking a coffee here. There's no way, right? Like you can tell where you are. The airport, I imagine, is a very similar situation. They're just going so fucking fast.
Yeah, it's a product of the environment, and you have to kind of understand that when you're here. So like, I have to be careful about what I order and from where. So at this point, George then walks into the bathroom and heads into like a stall, and he grabs a couple of those like sandy seats and puts them on the ground so he can kneel down in front of the toilet and pray.
This is a good visual gag.
The visual's nice because it's like a wooden stall, like the actual bathroom. So like when you get the close-up shot, he looks like he's in a confessional.
I thought at first too he was doing the classic pull the chain from the top because he was in the old wooden stall.
So it was smart the way they set that up, but just the logistics of like being like kneeled over a toilet bowl in a New York bathroom. Never ever would I do that.
I've been in a lot of New York bars before and a lot of bad New York bathrooms. I've been in the CBGB's bathroom before. You would not get on your knees.
He's like doing basically a long bit where he's praying to God and kind of admits that he doesn't talk to him very often, except for the last time where he had that like black thing growing on his neck that he needed like a biopsy for. And he's like, hey, listen, I really need you to do me a solid, and talks about how the Giants are about to go for this 52-yard field goal and how, it's not an unreasonable thing. Like 50-plus yarders are hit all the time. In fact, this kicker alone has hit 3 of his last 5 that were over 50. So he's not asking for like a miracle. And he continues to talk, and he's like, listen, if you do this for me, like I'll quit gambling forever. If it's written anywhere in the Bible that gambling's not okay, because he's not entirely sure if that's forbidden.
I'm not a religious man, but I feel like if there is a God, he must fucking hate Sundays, right? Like there must be this shit all fucking day all over the place.
Yeah, you gotta like turn it on and mute that day, right? Because you're just getting a lot of sports praise and stuff like that.
Is it playoffs? Fuck me.
George includes into no more gambling that he'll stop playing the lotto, but he admits that is that money is also like used for like kids. So
that is the funny thing about the lottery, right? We were like, but it goes back into like making roads better. Like it's another good way to like trick yourself into being like, I can buy another $10 ticket.
Really, every time you buy a scratch ticket, it's donating to charity.
I worked at the cash register of a convenience store for a couple of years, and the just out and out degenerate gambling you would see of people who go to the same store every day. Pretty fucking wild.
I know gambling's like a separate thing. When you do your taxes, you can claim lost gambling wages. But could you instead claim those lost wages as a charitable contribution if you know that your lottery money is being used for certain things?
I think that really depends on how good of a tax accountant you have.
You need a good accountant, right? That's going to word it the right way.
Yeah.
But I mean, by technicality,
I don't think H&R Block is going to make that work, but I feel like if you get like a good person to do it, you can probably make that work. Although the opposite of that, if you win a lot of money on your lottery, they want to know. The most I've ever won in the lottery was $1,000 in a scratch ticket. And they were like, here's your money and here's your tax form. I was like, you motherfuckers.
My biggest hit ever on a scratch ticket was 4,000. And I hit for 1,000 like a few times. I remember one time not claiming it in my taxes because they take out the state when you cash it immediately, but the federal doesn't come out unless you do a form.
Yeah.
And like that year, they catch me because I just didn't think about it. You know what I mean? Like months and months later, I'm doing my taxes. I'm not thinking about that one random form they handed me at the lottery office when I cashed in my $1,000 ticket. And I got like audited for like $100 or whatever it was. And I'm thinking like, there's so many, obviously a bigger conversation, especially with the political climate of today, but
yeah,
there's people in the world who like rob the government of tens of millions of dollars in taxes like yearly. And like, this kid didn't claim his $1,000 ticket, and I'm the one who gets audited.
This poor person to give us the $20 he owed us. Yeah.
George walks out right as the kick must be like midair. And this is the part that surprised me. I never thought he was going to win the bet, but the kick went in.
Yeah, they kind of throw you for a loop. You expect him to lose and then be in debt for $4,000 or whatever, $5,000.
It changes the course of what George's character is in this episode.
I guess it does send him on a better redemption story though than if he had lost it and he had to like scramble to find the money. Because I don't think he has $5,000 worth of stuff to sell, right? It's like you put him in this place and like he obviously has some money left, right? He's like buying dog food. He's still drinking beer at a bar. Also, look, as somebody who maybe drinks too much, historically, you do it at home. Like, I love the idea of people being like, I'm broke, I'm going to the bar. I'm like, that's a bad drinker move. You're a bad drinker.
So I'm a different kind of drinker. Like, I don't, I think mine's in control. I like to drink out. Like, so situations like that. But if you're a broke drinker and you're a I have no money drinker, you can't be paying bar prices. That's insane. I'm
lucky that I've grown up into a drinker who can afford to drink out and have had those years of my life. But I'm saying, like, if you're at that point where you're like in hock for $2,000 out of a bad bet, like maybe you go buy some tall boys and like go home that night.
So game ends. Neil walks over to George and is basically like, hey, I don't have like the $3,000 on me. So like, I'm going to have to go get it. And George walks over to the bar and he asks the bartender like, hey, do you still keep that bat behind the bar? And I'm thinking he's like going to, threaten Neil. He's like, why? What's it for? It depends. He's like, oh, I'm going to bash my own brains in. And then he's like, oh yeah, I have it.
I do enjoy their repartee. It's very funny that he like doesn't trust George and like is sort of only his friend.
George goes back to Neil and he's like, well, listen, he's like, I can write a check, but if you want the cash, like you're going to give me like 20 minutes, whatever. He's like, I'd rather the cash. He's like, 20 minutes is fine. Give me the cash. He's like, all right. And then as he's about to leave, he's like, wait, before you leave, give me the dog. He's like, really? And this was weird because at this point, Neil goes, I mean, I will, but I got to be honest with you. I don't even like this dog. He's like, well, that makes him a lucky dog then, doesn't it? And then he gives him the dog. Basically, he's like, I guess, collateral while he goes to get the money. And I want to mention that line because I feel like that really changes the end of the episode later on when Neil's saying how he doesn't really like the dog.
It makes you realize how bad of a guy, at the end, it makes you realize how bad of a guy Neil is, and he would lie about a dog he does care about. Also, like, I know it was the 90s and people had cash on them way more than now, but like, that's a lot of money to walk around with.
Yeah, even if you have it, that's a lot to just keep in pocket, unless you had like a steady, you knew you were going somewhere where you're going to need it.
Yeah, you needed that much cash on you. $2,000 is a lot of money.
So Neil leaves. And in the next scene, we see Jack is like closing up the bar. It's like later in the night. And George is like the only like patron who's still just sitting in the bar. And this is another one of, again, I feel like George Carlin's like injecting some George Carlin stuff in here, which is fine, like any sitcom. But like, I guess if you know his voice in like his style of comedy and the topics he talks about, and like God's a big topic. He's not a God-fearing man, but he does talk God a lot in his stand-up, especially like his later ones again. And he's asking the bartender, Jack, if he believes in God. He's like, well, I guess that depends on how you define God. I mean, if you're asking me, do I think there's some man in the sky with the beard? I have to say yes. Well, why? And I kind of like the redirect on that because that's usually the way someone who doesn't believe in God would explain it.
Right. Also, I'd love to like go back and dig into like, why does God have a beard in like historical texts or however we've made it in society now? Like, there's like an outline. Is it because Jesus had one?
Well, Jesus would have only had one because his dad had one, right? To look like dad.
Sure, but Jesus is like, when you show Jesus historic, if I know again from Italian paintings that have been in my house.
Well, historically, we show Jesus as a white dude. Yeah, Jesus looks like he's in the Bee Gees, when in reality he's like he's a Middle Eastern man. So like,
I mean, again, a lot of, which is also funny too, because I think you and I can both relate to this. Like growing up, like I know there's a very specific picture of Jesus that was like in my house growing up, and I've seen it in everybody's house growing up. He's like sitting on like a mountain with like a blue background or whatever. But yeah, he's like the whitest man in the world or whatever. But like even Italians I'm like, Italians are dark. What are you doing? Why do you think that he's Swedish? What's happening here?
I don't know. I maybe like the idea of like giving him a beard. Beards are a lot more popular these days. I feel like 70s beards had a good run and they kind of had a resurgence like the last 10, 15 years. Maybe it kind of like takes a little bit of the identity away from like, it makes him a little bit more of a generic look that
easier to paint and make a flat person. Yeah.
So like when you're making God or Jesus, you know what I mean? It just kind of just makes it like not too specific, I guess, maybe.
There's so much about, and again, I could dig into this for hours. We're not going to do it here because we don't need to relitigate.
Yeah, our show is usually for cum jokes.
it's usually where we're here. But like, so God is an old man with a white beard who's very pasty, and angels are naked babies. Like, what are we doing here? Wait, can we explain how that happened too? The cherub thing is very strange to me.
Yeah, I got no answers for that one.
That's a weird one, right? Like, somebody one day was just like, what if I draw a bunch of naked kids? You're like, I take question with this idea you have, but I guess the entirety of Catholicism is going to go with it. Sure, fuck it.
So George continues on with the conversation. He's like, well, basically, I wanted this to happen so bad, this kick, and I prayed to God for it to happen. Like, I actually prayed to him. Like, I got down on my knees and begged. And Sydney's like, the waitress, he pops up from behind the bar. Like, I love when guys do that. And I felt like the joke should have been not that. I could have went another way with the on the knees thing, but
if I was writing this, I would have still had her say that, but I would have had George saying it to her. Or she was like, did you get down on your knees and prayed? Be like, yes. Like, I love when guys do that. That makes it so she's actually a part of the conversation instead of just like, I'm the sex pot character who walks in and only chimes in when there's something sexual. Like, it would have given her actually more of the conversation.
I just felt like, I guess like my brain almost wanted it to be less clever. Like, I think there was a really obvious blowjob joke there and they just didn't take it. And they just went with like, it was just like her joke didn't really mean anything.
I will say that as raunchy as Fox was in the early 90s, I think that's maybe even a bit more raunchy than Fox is going to do for a...
Well, you have to be subtle, like, and not too, but yeah. But now George is curious, I guess. He's not a religious man. And now he's wondering, like, well, I prayed and I really wanted it, and then it happened. So maybe this is how it works. So he's like, hey, so this God of yours, does he answer your prayers? And Jack's like, well, I don't ask him for things. I'm usually just like thanking him for the things I do have. Like, oh, all right. Like, George's like, but you don't have anything. He's like, well, no, I do. I own a business and like, it's in a nice part of Jersey that only has occasional racial violence.
Occasional racial violence actually got me maybe a lot. That's what his house is, right? I live in a neighborhood with occasional racial violence.
But yeah, so it's like perspective, right? Like whether you're religious or not, like there's a point of glass half full versus glass half empty, you know? In George's brain, Jack doesn't have anything. In Jack's brain, he's like, no, I have, like, my life's great. I own a bar and, you know.
And to Jack's defense, too, where it's like, you own a home and a business. You're doing fucking fine, man. Like, you're golden. Even if it was given to you, even if it was, like, generational wealth, like, not a lot of people own houses or have their own business, and you're succeeding. You have employees. People are here.
Yeah, again, it's like...
It's kind of shitty of George to, like, knock him on it.
In glass half full is the guy who thanks God. In glass half empty is the guy who asks God. Like, it really, like, it does, like, you could simplify it in that way. And that's when Sydney pops in and goes, yeah, but it wasn't God who died and gave you all that stuff. It was your dad. And anyways, if there was a God, I wouldn't need a boob job. I like the response was, well, waitressing may be a boob job, Sydney, but in these tough times, you should be grateful for anything that pays the bills.
When this happened, I was like, I get they're harping on this, and I know that Dr. Neil becomes a main character, so like they want to keep making these jokes. But it feels like she really took his advice on the boobs a little to heart, huh?
Sure, but I did love the extreme corniness of using boob job as like, you're a boob, and saying that waitressing is a boob job, you know?
Again, very Carlin to make the witty wordplay.
Now George is like, well, I better be getting out of here anyways. I have to go meet up with Harry and, you know, give him all my personal belongings. And as he's walking out, he's like, oh, don't forget your dog. He's like, this isn't my dog. It's like, why don't you take him? You like dogs. He's like, well, not that kind of dog. I like dogs you can wrestle and hunt with and walk around without people wondering if you were gay.
I didn't expect to be like so blatant homophobia about the dog. And again, it's of the time, but I was thrown by it.
That joke popped me, but I wonder if the joke popped me now because like you don't get this joke anymore. So now to hear him blatantly say that.
Right. Like this is a time past. Yeah.
Yeah, so like maybe like it was the shock of it, but I thought it was hilarious when he said that.
And you've got a small dog. It's just a dog. Give a dog. Doesn't matter what it is.
I feel like, if I'm being completely honest with you, I can't further elaborate on that line or anything without saying something that I'm going to regret how I structured that sentence.
Yeah, it'll come out poorly. Or be like, you have a cat, right? Like that's another one, yeah.
So I'll be like, what can I say other than, my dog is small and I am not gay? That is... moving right along.
I do feel like, though, this is an interesting point just to bring up real quickly, that, like, I feel like dog ownership has changed so much in our lives, where, like, people can be like very proud of like, this is my dog and I don't have kids. This is what we do. And people are like, yeah, it doesn't matter what kind of dog it is. But I feel like in 1994, it was like, oh, this guy's got like a dog and it's small and it's weird, right? Like now you'd never hear that, not even because of the societal change, but because like the acceptance of people with their animals and like service animals and like all this stuff is just so different.
Yeah, I mean, like my dog is basically like the dog from The Mask. So I love having a smaller dog. I like dogs in general, but I will say, like, having friends with much larger dogs too, like, boy, will they fuck your house up.
Yeah. And as somebody who got bit by a dog in the past few years, who's a very big dog, it's really made me like smaller dogs a lot more. If I can't take a dog, put it in a headlock and jump and know I can kill it, then I don't want that dog around me because that's too strong of a dog.
So from the bar scene, we cut to a little later on, and now we have George in the house with the dog, and he's talking to the dog as it's entering the house for the first time, and he's kind of just having a chat with him. I think the companionship is nice, but he's telling him, you know, just so you know, like, I'm going to talk to you like this. I'm not going to baby talk you like other people do with dogs unless I'm mad, and then I'll talk like this, and he changes his tone a little bit.
It's a very sweet, funny dog. I feel like you get that Carlin's an animal person here too, right? Like he understands the...
Yeah. So while he's talking to the dog, Harry knocks on the door. When he walks in, he's like looking around. He's like, what's that? Mitsubishi, the TV or whatever? Like, yeah, 27-inch. It's all good stuff, Harry. And he's looking at it. He's like, oh, looking at the whole entertainment center. He's like, I could probably give you like $2,000 for this. And as he's looking at it, you could tell like he really doesn't want to take all of his stuff. And he's like, let me ask you something. If you cut your hair, will they give you your job back? Like, of course they will.
And also real quick too, I know we talk about this every time we do like a New York episode, but like this apartment now would be like $5,000 a month.
And it's just a studio, you know, it's just like, that's all it is.
It basically looks like in Seinfeld, if you were in Jerry's apartment, but there was no hallway back to the bathroom and bedroom.
Yeah, it's basically like just, like it's a giant living room and then with a bed, which I guess is what most studio apartments end up being.
This is the living room of, instead of Jerry Seinfeld, this is like the apartment of if Joey Gladstone had to have his own apartment, like the failed comedian apartment. They didn't have an alcove to sleep in. This is where Gladstone would live.
Harry's like, you know, I feel bad. Like, I'm taking everything that makes your life bearable. Like, he's like, would it be so terrible to just compromise just a little bit? Like, look at yourself. When was the last time you were out on a date? Like, I keep my love life private. The women insist. Yeah.
Fast response.
He's like, there's one thing I got to know. Like, what's so important about that ponytail? He's like, it tells people that I'm the kind of guy that won't cut his ponytail, okay? Plus, it pisses people off. Like, what people? All people, everybody, the whole world.
This is that insanity of like where, and it's everybody. It's us, it's me, it's you, it's everybody. You all think that you're the star.
It's main character syndrome.
The movie of your life, and people give a shit.
You can't help it. Like
if you walked by and saw a guy with that ponytail, you'd be like, guy with ponytail. You'd never think that's the only thing you'd think of.
It's a funny thing too. Like, you know, you hear main character syndrome a lot, but like, in fairness to anybody, you're looking through the world through your own set of eyes, like through a perspective that's unique to you. You know what I mean? Like everyone is the main character of their own life, you know? So, and there is something about that, I mean, I guess you and I, like, I mean, maybe our upbringing and like just kind of maybe a little more punk rock mentality of like, he only wants to, at this point, this ponytail is just a symbol of like, I'm not cutting it only because I know you want me to cut it. Like, it's not even that he wants it so much. And
right.
I find myself at times being like that. There are times where like I've, you know, been by my dad's house and he's like, hey, why don't you trim that beard a bit? And my gut instinct is like, I will grow this beard down to my fucking kneecap before I cut it because you said to. And like, and there's a point where like, it's gotten so long that even like in the moment as he's saying it to me, like, I don't even like how long it is. But instead of agreeing with them, I'm like, fuck you. Like, I don't want to give him that. So I would just rather let him think I'll grow it out for an eternity before I cut it.
Yeah, I mean, like the anti-authoritarian thing definitely still kicks in all the time for certain things. But I feel like if you're growing just a longer ponytail, it's, again, the end of it, we're like, he doesn't cut off his ponytail, he just trims it. And they don't say that. They don't say if you make it shorter. It's kind of confusing, right? But also like, yeah, I get it. You don't want to change the stuff that's you. And I've had this pushback at work for different things before. Like we all have, right? But I feel like you're 50 years old, George. You got to compromise a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
So at my job, when I was in a different position, there was a strict requirement. It still exists there and skirted by. There's a strict facial hair policy that has written down how long your beard is allowed to be, which for those of you who watch any of our clips, S1E1 pod on social media, you'll see my beard is on the longer side most of the time. Even when it's short by my standards, is long by your average standard. And I've struggled in the way George has, because I get it. When you're at work, you got to wear your uniform, you got to do certain things, and like it's their rules. But I do have certain issues sometimes when their rules infringe on your outside of work life. So what you want from me changes how I have to look all the time, not just when I'm at work. You want me to cover my tattoos, which was a thing at one point. Fine. When I'm out of work, I don't have to do that. But if you want me to cut my facial hair, and in his case, his ponytail, you're altering my look all the time, not just while I'm on the clock. Yeah. So, I mean, I do agree to it. Like, I understand it at least.
I mean, I had a job once where I was literally like, I've had a lot of jobs where I was like unloading trucks for companies and filing away inventory, right? Like shipping, receiving jobs. And one of them was a clothing store, and they were like, you have to wear the clothes from here when you're working. And I was like, I work in a basement. Like, I'm not really outside. The trucks come and I put them in the basement. I fold them. And they're like, well, when you're here, you have to wear it. I was like, okay. So I would just go to work, put on a pair of their pants and a pair of their t-shirt when I worked in the basement. And when I left, I'd change again. And I was like, I guess that's a reasonable thing. But like, if they're like, hey, when you go out in the world tonight to a bar, you have to dress like that.
There was a stretch of time where, like, in my old position at work, I had to work indoors, like for a small period of time, doing like a whatever, like side type of job for a little bit. And usually in my old position, I had to wear steel toes. But when I was working indoors and not around machinery, I would just wear my sneakers to work. And they were like, hey, you can't wear your sneakers. The uniform says you have to wear steel toes. I'm like, but I'm inside. Like, nothing, like all the things that I'm being protected by are not, they're not near me. And that was like a whole thing.
Do you find now that we're in a different time in the world where like I would almost rather cover my tattoos than get in a conversation about them? I find nothing more annoying than like a conversation. What's that mean? It's like, it's just a fucking dumb picture. I don't want to talk about it. What are you doing?
I have come to terms. I mean, we're both different people socially, like flat out.
Sure.
It gets annoying depending on the person, right? But it certainly depends. I don't invite it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just, obviously you see it. I have full sleeves, so you're gonna see I have tattoos, even if most of the time I'm gonna be in a t-shirt in public. The idea of people, like, if you want to talk to me about it and you're not like dummy, like, I don't mind talking to someone random for a minute.
Oh yeah, I'm not against talking about it in general. I just mean like, well, what does that mean? You're like, that's like a weird conversation.
But I do find it funny, like, looking back and like knowing people who just go out of their way to show off their tattoos, who we joked about, people we grew up with who would wear certain articles of clothing, cut them a certain way just so their tattoos would be seen, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing, which is so funny to me. Like the newer generation of kids, not to sound like the old guy, but they tattoo their lower arms before their upper arms, and they tattoo their necks and hands first. And that's so opposite of the world we grew up in. Like, for someone our age to tattoo their necks or their hands or their lower arms is because they ran out of room on the covered spots, the conventional spots.
Right. You're still going. I walked into a store recently that I go into every once in a while, and girl behind the counter, I would peg her probably 10 years-ish younger than us. I don't see any other tattoos on her anywhere. Had a tattoo right here that was very fresh. You could tell, when tattoos are like brand new, right? It's like shiny. You put the Badger bomb on it or whatever. And I was like, whoa, you started at face next to your eye? That's fucking bananas. And like, I'm not against that. I'm just saying it's crazy to think that's the first place you go.
It's like, I don't want to be like too judgy, but like internally I am. But like when I see, it's just, maybe I grew up in a different time of the world. But if I see your lower arms are stuffed with tattoos and your upper arms are completely bare, my feeling towards it, and I'm sorry if any of you do it, but it's just how my brain naturally thinks at times. I could be wrong, but it's like you're getting those so other people can see them more than it is for yourself. And that's just how I perceive it. And I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but that
I specifically have tattoos in places that no one would ever see, because like that was important to me to be like, no, there are tattoos in places that are for me. Like, I'm not a shorts wearer, right? It's like if I have a leg tattoo, you're never going to see it because I don't wear shorts. I've got my upper arms. I don't wear sleeveless t-shirts, right? Like they're there because you want them, but you're never like walking out being like, look at me, world, look at all my cool stuff.
My lower arms and legs both, but I mean, I have a good amount at this point. But I've always wanted to hold to my personal rule. Again, I don't give a shit what you have. You know, I have a lot of tattoos. I personally want to be able to wear a button-up shirt and you not know I have. If I'm somewhere with long pants and a button-up shirt, you won't know I have any tattoos. I try to hold true to the hands and neckline personally, just because, you know, if you're at a wedding or certain events, like I want to be able to just not have them exposed. But I have plenty of friends. We have plenty of friends who have that stuff in all different spots. But me personally, that's where I like to draw the line.
Honestly, as somebody, I have not as many as you, but a fair amount of tattoos. I'm always just like, I'm not getting my hand tattooed. It's going to hurt so fucking bad. Like, I love when people say, like, tattoos don't hurt. Like, that's a fucking lie. Tattoos are not fun to get.
I've never understood that. Like, are you trying to sound tough or like they hurt? They fucking hurt. But
yeah, it sucks getting a tattoo. You have to, like, bring your brain into, like, a different place for 2 hours so you don't think about getting stabbed that whole time. Like, it's not fun. Like,
always explained it to people is, yes, they hurt. If they hurt so bad that it was intolerable, I would only have one. So, like, the fact that I have as many as I do, right. It's, you know, you can live with it and it'll last forever. But to move along, this is a large tangent that kind of got away from some stuff because we're just talking about television costs and stuff. But to cycle it way back, Harry's like, listen, this is all about $2,000 worth of stuff. I need more. What else do you have? And he's like, what do you like? I'm not hiding a piano in here. This is all of it. And then he notices the albums. And Joe, it's funny because you touched on it earlier. Like, I would say, like, for all the things you collect, your vinyl collection is probably one of the more substantial collections you have.
This hurt me. This was tough. I've got about 4,000 records. And yeah, I felt immediately. It was like, oh, there are some very expensive rare records that I couldn't part with.
Yeah. So he's going through and he's like digging through. He's like, oh, I got a customer at a record store. Like, you know, give me $700 worth of records. He's like, well, I guess some of these are maybe worth a little bit. And he's kind of going through them all. And as he's flicking through, like, there's one that he kind of tries to, like, sneak off and, like, throw off to the side as he's sifting through. He's like, whoa, what's that one over there? He's like, Harry, that's an original pressing of a Miles Davis record. Like, it's like, of all these, like, I can replace some, but, like, I'll never get another Miles. He's like, what do you want from me, man? He's like, you're the one who likes to bet. He's like, I'm going to get my nephew tomorrow to move all this stuff out, okay? And just come get us at Moreland. Moreland being the bar when you're ready. He's like, wait, what if you take the dog instead? He's like, I don't have a room for a dog here. And he's like, you will by tomorrow. I mean, that dog's way smaller than your media center. Besides, you don't realize it, but you really need a dog right now, which I actually thought was like good insight from Harry. He's like, you're not, this kind of takes me back to the Marin stuff with like his pets, but it's like, yeah, you kind of need, you need this pet.
Alex Rocco is the best part of this episode. He is so good in this.
But yeah, I felt in Joe, I mean, you and I text about like outside of the rest of the pod with like record stuff, because obviously the other three of them could give a shit. And we've talked about original pressings and like, you know, for him, like Miles Davis is one of his favorite artists. And, you know, we've talked like, you know, like I love the Misfits, but like I don't think I'll ever be able to afford like an original pressing of a Misfits record.
Those are not, I mean, like some of the LPs you can get for $200. Those singles are basically like $800 to $1,000 a piece now.
And it's so like the idea that he has this in his possession is like, please, like, take whatever you can to get this amount of money from me, but like not this one record.
I totally felt it. It's also funny now too, right? Because like, again, pre-internet, I looked this record up, this is a Miles record, and like you can get like a beat up player copy, which like his records are clearly played, right? Like they're his records for life for like $50. You can $2,000 on like a pristine original copy of it, but in the scheme of things, when things are so much easier to attain now, like it's not like, the bummer of that is
when you have the internet at your fingertips,
you lose the ability to walk into a store and just go, oh,
because like then you have to find it. You know, it's like you're not going to just necessarily walk around and find it and then find the right pressing, or, you know, we are spoiled in that regard now. Everything's easier to find.
It's good and it's bad. It's good that you can order something from like the Netherlands and Absolutely. Have it there in 2 weeks, right? Like some insanely rare thing. But you can't find anything for cheap anymore.
The world is your mall, but now the world is also your competition to purchase things.
Yeah. And you'll pay as much as you're willing to pay.
And then I do like this too. Before Harry leaves, he's like, here. And he like, I don't know if it's, I couldn't tell. Maybe it was like a 20. I couldn't see the denomination of bill it was. But he's like, here, get some dog food for the dog. He's like, I can't do it. He's like, come on, the dog needs some food. And like, that's just another, like the bookie, like being his real friend and just a genuine good guy. He's like, here, get some food for the dog.
This is also very much like the scene in Casino where he's like, tell me you gambled the money. I'll give you the fucking money to put the lights on. Just tell me you fucking did it, you know?
You know, he eventually begrudgingly takes the money. When Harry leaves, George shows the dog the money. He's like, see this? You get this much worth of food. And when this food is this much food is gone, like, you have to leave. So eat slow. We cut to George taking the dog outside to like go get the dog food. And the dog's trying to go to the bathroom. So he's going to like, you know, he's standing there with the dog. And then this guy in a leather jacket walks over. Like, oh, how adorable. He's like, make for daddy. Like, you know, I have a collar just like his. This all goes into the comments earlier that like by having a little dog by default, it's going to be assumed that you're gay. Because this man is, by 90s standards especially,
a character they would not put, like somebody who looks like he's from the Blue Oyster Bar in Police Academy, like a character they would not do now.
But yes, this man is obviously meant to be a gay character in this episode.
He's like a leather daddy gay stereotype, yeah.
And then George is like, I'm not his daddy, okay? He belongs to a guy I met in the bar last night. He's like, oh, I see. Well, I hope it works out. And he walks off.
I will say, if you're going to go like the low-hanging fruit and do like the stereotypical gay character, at least they rounded it out with like a funny joke.
And then he walks off, dog starts taking a shit, and then a girl walks by and she's like, you better pick that up. Now I'll say this, I hate when people just let their dog shit and leave it, but like, you gotta give them a chance to pick it up before you just make a fucking comment like that, right?
I agree, it's a social contract, you have to do it, but like, the dog wasn't even finished yet. Like, you don't walk up to somebody watching their dog go to the bathroom and be like, just so you know, you have to pick that up. Like, you assume they're going to until they don't.
Now, I believe that George was going to leave it, but let me see him take a couple steps before this girl walks by and scolds him for it.
Right. Nothing is more infuriating, especially as somebody who likes taking like a walk. You know, be like, I'm taking a walk and get coffee or something. And like, you see dog shit on the ground, you're like, how fucking dare you just keep going? Fucking dare you. Who do you think you are?
And she's walking by and he's like, you know what? I'll pick it up and I'll mail it to you. He needs to get the upper hand on this argument. So he's telling the dog as he's picking up the shit, like, this Kleenex is like, we're deducting this from the money value of like how much food you're getting.
Also very funny too. You see somebody like taking, and like I've done it with like my family's dogs, whatever. Like nowadays, you take a bag, you put your hand in it, you pick it up, you flip the bag inside out, you wrap it up, you throw it away. Like it's a situation to not touch it. He just has a Kleenex. We're like, that's a bad system.
In fairness, when I saw him go to pull the clean, my brain instantly was like almost a cynic in me. I was like, I better not see him have a doggy like bag, because like it's not believable that he would have that. So it's good that he had the Kleenex because he shouldn't have had anything else.
Sure, that's fair, yeah.
They walk into this pet store and he's looking around. He's like, oh, here's something with a picture of a dog on it. So he grabs it and he walks over to like the counter, and this woman walks out from the back room. She's like, whoa, hello. Like, aren't you a little cutie pie? And she's like talking to the dog, and George seems to take an early liking to her. So he's like, now he's playing it up like he loves the dog. He's like, yep, he's an adorable guy, huh? They exchange pleasantries, and while they're doing that and introducing one another, she like takes her like overshirt off, just like in like getting down to just like her t-shirt. It's nothing like exposing, but by doing so, like he gets like a look at her tits and like just goes like, and like notably does like a ooh thing, like as she takes her shirt off, like his face lights up. It's like this. It was I guess it's kind of carries into when Harry was asking about his love life, but yeah, he looked at boobs the way a child does. And she's not even wearing like a cleavage shirt. It's like a to her neck crew length cut t-shirt.
I will say though, I'm glad they like didn't make this character like 18.
Yeah, no, this was definitely the vibe I got from the two of them was it's very Rocky, right? Like the girl at the pet store, but like, is this a potential love interest here between the two of them? Because we're seeing a good vibe between them, and they're, you know, she seems to like the dog, but like, I think her and George are having good conversation where it looks like there might be a little interest there.
Yeah, like she's clearly into jazz. She likes that he has a dog. Like it's moving. Like you can tell this is like a upcoming storyline probably.
It was smart too, because like he when he asked her if she liked jazz, he was just making small talk, but then he was able to pivot it into like, oh, yeah, that's the dog's name. Because he asked earlier, like what his name was. He's like, oh, I call him a lot of things. But when he asked her, like, do you like Jazz? She's like, oh, I do. Does that have anything to do with the dog's name? He's like, no. Actually, no, yes, it does. His name is Miles. Miles. She's like, yeah, I named him after a musician. And she goes, Miles Davis? Like, it's almost like when he said after musician, I like how he like mentions Miles Davis like he's some niche artist that like no one else would know.
Right. Not the most famous jazz musician in the entire world. Yeah.
She's like playing with the dog a little bit, and then as she goes to ring him up, she's looking at that food and she's like, oh, this food's like not great. Like, as a matter of fact, it's been banned in Canada and most of Europe. It's like, oh no, we don't want that.
Which is like the food now too, where it's like food dyes and stuff. Where like they don't make this in Canada. You're like, oh, we're still eating these Skittles.
Yeah, it's fine.
Now?
For
What's
humans, it's fine. In the case of the dog, we need to draw the line. And she's like, you want to try this instead? And she like pulls out this giant bag of like dry dog food. And she's like, it's a couple bucks more, but like it gives your dog a better shot of like a normal lifespan. It's like, well, for a couple extra bucks. She's like, yeah, and then come back and let me know how he's doing on it. He's like, well, how about this? Maybe I'll take the smaller bag, and then I don't have to wait so long to come back, and I can tell you how he's doing, which is smart in two ways. It gives him an excuse to see her sooner, and he doesn't have any money, so he could buy the much smaller bag of food. So super clever, good way out of it, works on two folds.
And she's clearly into it too.
She does that, and then she's like, oh, look, I have this coupon, so this is good for a free introductory grooming and all this stuff. She's saying like, you'll get a bath, nail clipping, and also like, I clean the ears and I express the anal glands. He goes, huh? He's like, forgive me. I know you're talking about the dog, but just for a minute, I had a fantasy.
Hard not to laugh. That's a great joke. Funny that came up. So this week in real time, my cat was having an issue where he was like, he had rubbed and like whatever, a raw spot in his tail. We called the vet and they're like, yeah, you should come in. We had no idea what it was. I'm working, sitting at my desk or whatever. My wife has the cat. I get a text and you see just like the text message pop up or whatever. And she says, anal glands, nothing else. Not the cat's issue was with. And this is why I just looked out and see anal glands. It was like, could you explain a little more, please? But then I watched this episode the same day and was like, well, that's really funny. Like, what a weird coincidence. But yeah, my cat had a problem with his anal glands, but they're now expressed.
It's very unfortunate that just like earlier when we mentioned like, oh, the Giants are playing and we don't have Nick in the episode. And now also here's a point where we're talking about dog buttholes and Gordo's not here.
No Gordo. Yeah, he's going to edit this and be like, what the fuck?
Love you, Gordo. He walks out of the place with the dog. You see him go like, you know something? I'm starting to like you. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And we see like George is doing exactly what he told the dog he wasn't going to do when they first started talking, which is like the baby talk. So we see George is already just having this dog for like the last few hours has already kind of like helped him evolve a little bit as a human being.
I do enjoy when we watch a pilot where you can actually see a story arc for a person where like they become a better person and it doesn't feel super forced. Like I felt like this was written pretty well, that like the dog turns him.
I thought this whole episode was like, there's a lot of really smart writing that happens along the way here. We see the two of them walking into the bar and everyone's like cheering for George as he walks in, which is a little confused at the time. And I think this is only because Neil's back with his money. Is that why everyone's cheering for him?
I think so, yeah, because he's such a down in his luck person that he actually won something. And the guy came back, is going to give him the money, that they're like cheering for him, that he finally won one, you know?
Neil walks up and he's like, George, I told you I'd be back. I got your money right here. Listen, I hope Dinky wasn't too much of a bother. He's like, what kind of name is Dinky? He's like, well, anyways, it's all here. He's like, well, wait a minute. Harry's like, just give him the dog and get my money. George is like, well, wait a minute. Like you said you were going to pay me last night. He's like, yeah, I'm sorry, but the patient had an emergency, life-threatening complications. He's like, yeah, but you didn't come back and pay me. Like, so I say the dog's mine. He's like, all right, wait a minute. Are you telling me you would rather have that dog than $3,000? And I was kind of confused by this because I was thinking he was going to leverage like, oh, now you owe me interest. I want the dog too.
Right. Yeah. It took an extra day.
And also like when Neil showed up earlier, I also thought it was a little funny that he's like, oh, I told you I'd be back. Well, it's a different day. So you can't act like you didn't wait an extra day to show up with the money.
Also, he knew he'd be back at the bar he goes to every day, which is like a depressing thing.
But yeah, that whole assumption that like, wait, you want the dog instead of the money? I thought it was going to be an interest thing. But I guess the whole purpose is because we're trying to see growth in the character, right? So George is like, I think that's what I'm saying, Beck. All right, he's yours. Another thing I said earlier, Neil, for no reason earlier, tells us he doesn't even like the dog.
Right.
It's like, I just think this part, I get it. Like, the whole idea is we need to see George's character grow. And now, despite how tough things are in his life, he's made this bond with the dog. He wants to keep the dog. He's even going to sacrifice like the escape route to all his financial problems. But Neil doesn't like his dog. Why did we throw that in earlier? Like, just don't tell us that Neil doesn't like the dog.
Right. Like, if you didn't say that and Neil just goes, I'll miss you, Dinky, but a bet's a bet, you'd be like, okay. But why throw the one line that he doesn't care about the dog?
Yeah, because you told us that for no reason, and now it's like, well, then why did he have to choose it over the 3? Like, he should have given him for free with the 3,000 because he doesn't even like the dog.
And you can tell he doesn't, though, because, like, if somebody said, like, gun to your head, $3,000 or your pet, you'd be like, okay. My cat's an asshole. I'd still pay the $3,000, you know?
So he's like, all right, dog's yours. And Neil walks off. And then as he leaves, George announced to everyone, and no more Dinky. From now on, this guy's Miles. And Sydney's like, have you ever seen a psychiatrist? He's like, not voluntarily. I did like that line as well.
That is funny, yeah.
So now George walks to the bar and he asks the bartender if he has any scissors. And while that's happening, Harry's like, where are you going? Like, we got to go get your stuff, remember? Like, I'm says he's waiting for his probation officer. So I don't know what's going on in Harry's life. He's got some shit going on too. And then George says to Harry, hey, you know me by now. I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. And in fact, watch this. And George grabs the scissors and he cuts off his ponytail. And then he hands it to the bartender. He's like, hey, you can throw that out or you can hang it on the wall. I don't care. And he's like, I'm going to throw it away.
I'm so glad they left that one line in. They didn't like staple it to the wall and say like, this is when George changed. Like they're just like, I'm going to throw this out. This is fucking gross, man.
So now George is telling Harry, after I get back from work tomorrow, we'll talk about that installment plan. All right. He's like, you got it. Oh, wait. He's like, there's still one little problem. He's like, I got no problem. He's like, well, how are you going to piss off the world now? He's like, a guy with my experience, I could do it without a ponytail. I do like, so again, the story was super smart, right? So the whole thing, him winning the bet, all his problems could have been solved easier. He wasn't backed into doing the right thing. He actually made the right decisions because of actual growth and being a good person. Super smart, right? All this writing is really smart. But yeah, it was just a couple nitpicky things that irked me. But I think they took a lot of twists in the story that I didn't expect. And maybe it's because like a lot of the times where we point out like plot holes and stuff, like they actually kind of covered their base a lot better. And they took the road less turned a couple times, and the morality story they were trying to tell was actually there.
Not a lot of glaring holes, which you usually see in a show like this.
So that's the entirety of the episode. Not a lot of other stuff I wanted to bring up other than I did think it was kind of interesting to note that so the creator of the show, Sam Simon, the two of them created the show together, but only Sam Simon gets credits. And George had kind of been on record about he had some issue with that. And then when the show had ended, he had said he had some of the most fun ever doing the show, but Sam was incredibly challenging to work with, and that he couldn't wait to get off the show because of it. And then Sam has responded to some of those comments with I don't really know where that's coming from. I thought we had a great time when we did the show. I thought some of that stuff was interesting. There's some interviews that you can listen back to, and I think George Carlin touches on it in his book a little bit.
And Sam Simon, R.I.P., right? The guy who gave us a lot of stuff.
But yeah, the George Carlin Show. This is again just a show that didn't have a long run, 2 seasons, but existed in a time that was a little early for us and isn't really a revisited show like we mentioned. It doesn't have syndication and all that shit in modern day, and it wasn't really a Nick at Night show, so we didn't grow up with it. We know about this show really as adults because we love George Carlin, and as a result know all the things he was involved with. But definitely an interesting show to go back and peek at, especially with the super cast of people that are involved in the show. You look kind of the credits and other people who are involved, just a lot of really funny people that were in this episode or other episodes. With that being said, might as well get into the green light or cancel. There's only 2 of us, so there's no definitive vote that's going to be settled today.
No way to know.
Because the other three will still have to vote, and that will reflect on our social media page. You can go to S1E1 Pod, and that will be up later in the week. I guess easy to pick the order in this one. Joe, starting with you, green light or cancel?
This is an easy green light. Again, I love George Carlin, and we mentioned on this episode how it seems insane. 40 episodes of whatever, right? 2 seasons of a show, all these streamers looking for new content. And then George Carlin is one of the most famous comedians of all time. And then a big HBO documentary came out about him. You're like, why wouldn't somebody put this somewhere? You could just watch it. It just seems insane to me. And maybe imagine we're gonna have like a lawyer write in one day who does like entertainment law and be like, it's all about the contracts that were written and this stuff can't be streamed and people are dead. Now it's, people's estates or whatever. But like, work that shit out, man. Like, this stuff exists and like people love these people. We can't watch them do this stuff. And they're obviously not going after people on YouTube for it, right? There's no copyright strikes or this stuff wouldn't be up there, right? WWE will fucking knock your shit down in 2 seconds, but Fox isn't going after the George Carlin Show, right? This was very well written. And I think him and Alex Rocco's friendship is like genuinely endearing and sweet. I really enjoyed rewatching this. I'm going to see how much of the 2 seasons are on YouTube, but it's a green light for me.
So believe it or not, I'm actually going the other way and I'm canceling it, but it's weird. I enjoyed this to an extent. I have some issues. I thought this was written very, very smart. I do think it lacked a little bit in the joke department where it needed some more, like, it had a lot of really smart George Carlin humor, but not a lot of like quick sitcom laughs, like in the moment, like funny jokes. You know what I mean? It's a lot of think humor. So I wanted a little bit more like kind of like a little more, Nick way back used to talk about jokes per minute. I don't think there's a lot of jokes per minute here. But yeah, I thought the cast and the chemistry was great, and I would honestly love to watch the rest of it, but I want to do that based on what I know outside of this and not on the first impression. So like, I love George Carlin, and I'm sure other episodes were a little more funny and things like that. So I enjoyed it, but I did find that it was a little slow. I found it weird. There was almost like no music throughout the episode, if you caught that. Like ins and outs, like there was like not a lot of...
I kind of like that because it's a realism thing.
I thought it just kind of took a little bit of the emotion out of it. It just kind of made it feel a little flat at times because we didn't have as much like interstitial music. And I thought we could have used a little bit of that, especially in an episode where music is talked about so much and jazz music. Like, you could get some public domain jazz music that you could sneak in for scene transitions. You know what I mean?
It does seem silly to mention Miles Davis so much and then have no music. Yeah.
I just felt like it needed a little bit of that just to perk you up, because I felt like I did just a little clock watching, not a lot of it. So cancel for me, but it's a soft cancel, and I probably would watch more anyways, but that's just because I already know I like the people involved. So with that being said, we're split pot right now, 3 more votes, so I can't say congratulations or sorry one way or another. But I want to thank all you guys for listening. Our first ever 2-man show. I hope you guys still enjoyed it. Hopefully we don't have to do too many because it's great when we're all here together. But go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social media. Everywhere where you can find us. Buy a t-shirt, rate, review, subscribe on all those places where you listen. Let us know shows you want us to cover in the future. We'll be happy to talk about them. And that's it. We'll catch you again next week with another new episode. But until then, thank you. Goodbye.
I think we got the best S1E1 Pod Expressed My Anal Glands t-shirt available now at S1E1pod.com.
Maybe.